Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Beefy Boys Breakdown, episode 152. Coming at you live. You could call it a day late. I don't think it's a dollar short, so does it make a difference? I don't think so. It's Monday night, neither here nor there. What we are here for to talk about is UFC Fight Night Sao Paulo. Derrick Lewis facing off against Jailton Almeida. Lewis at number 10, Almeida at number 9. Pretty impactful heavyweight matchup in the sense that Lewis did just get re-signed to a big contract after knocking out Marcos Rogerio de Lima, notably knocked some of his teeth loose. Was a pretty brutal fight, but Derrick Lewis looked athletic, looked in shape, looked like a Derrick Lewis we haven't seen before. So it begged the question, and I think the UFC begged the question as well, clearly signing him to a 6-fight deal. Is he going to remain that way? And if he stays that way, is he an actual athlete and is therefore more dangerous in the heavyweight division? Can he make a resurgence? And then on the juxtaposition, you have Jailton Almeida, this young savage who started at 205, a tough cut for him. I mean, he is a big guy. He's one of those guys that perfect weight, 225, 220. So 205, pretty tough for him to make. Now, on the other hand, Derrick Lewis used to have to cut, drastically cut, like cut 35, 40 pounds to make heavyweight. Now is in better shape. Still has to cut maybe 5 to 7 pounds, I think. But, I mean, at that weight, that's literally just one super hard workout and you're there. I've lost 9 pounds in a practice before, albeit probably better hydrated, but still literally the same weight, like 275 to 266 or 265 to 256, whatever it was. You can lose a lot of water weight in those workouts. They're tough. You're in a hot room. And honestly, they'll usually throw you in a hoodie or something that's going to absorb a lot of moisture off you, so a lot of sweat gets taken off. Now, before we dive into the actual matchup, I think I would like to run through the card bottom to top. It does start with Mark Jacasey, lightweight, taking on Kawhi Fernandez. Jacasey minus 200, Fernandez making his debut plus 165. I'll keep these short, touch on them for betting purposes only. Didn't actually place any bets this week, unfortunately. Didn't see a whole lot of value on the table here. We'll get to that as it goes through the card. You'll probably see where there could be proposition values here all day. But in all honesty, the straight values weren't there. So the straight parlay that I always like to play or create really wasn't there for me either. Anyway, to not belabor the point, Mark Jacasey pretty much just went with a veteran savvy approach in this fight. I scored at 30-27 for him. Didn't have him losing a round. Now, it is a split decision, so I guess we do need to look at the judges' scorecards here. The fact this is a split and I score at 30-27, a travesty. Now, could I see a round for Fernandez? Sure. And there's a 30-27 for Jacasey here as one of the cards. There's also a 29-28 for Jacasey here as one of the cards. He does win the split. Now, that being said, there's also a 29-28 for Fernandez. And like I said, I can see the one round for him. I'm struggling to figure out what pair of rounds you could pick out. I can pick out a lot of pairs for Jacasey. 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 1 and 3. All three of them. But can't do that for Fernandez, so let's see what these blind judges are talking about. It's unfortunate, the judging. So it looks like one judge gave him rounds 1 and 2. The other judge gave him 1. The Brazilian judge gave all 3 to Jacasey. That's pretty wild. But I beg to differ with 1 and 2. I thought 2, I don't understand what Fernandez even did. In 1, he was very active from the bottom, threatened Jacasey a few times. But I thought in 2, Jacasey had more so figured it out. I didn't see round 2 being that close. I'm very surprised by that. And I even wrote, I don't see much dispute about any of the rounds, first being the closest. So, yeah, I mean, that was a very close to robbery. Very close to robbery on a minus 200. And betting against a person that was in their UFC debut. Typically something Dominic and I like to do. So I did like JaCasey there in that fight, minus 200. Now, Fernandez looked to be a BJJ specialist. Couldn't submit JaCasey. I don't know what that's telling me. But I'm still intrigued by him. I'm intrigued by a lot of these Brazilian guys that seem to have that shoot to box, basic striking style, but they're powerful and fast, so they utilize it well, and the kicks in their system are great. But all that aside, the jiu-jitsu is just fantastic to watch when those guys do get to work. It's just, if that's supposed to be his specialty and he's not getting it against JaCasey, granted, savvy vet, I don't know if you're selling me. We'll keep it pushing. It's strawweight. We have Montserrat Canejo, Ruiz, adding the Ruiz now. I don't know. Who the fuck knows? Plus 370. Taking on Eduarda. I thought that was a great name. Not Eduardo. Eduarda Mora. Minus 650. Now, this is what I mean by the value just isn't here. I don't know much about Mora making her debut. Nickname's Rhonda, so apparently I'm going to assume a monster. That being said, Montserrat, great chin. It's like, about it. That's where those great accolades for her stop. She has okay footwork. She has okay hands. They're not better than okay. I wouldn't put them at good, if that makes sense. That being said, I just thought plus 370 was juicy, but I couldn't find the path, so it didn't make sense. And minus 650 was just squeezing me dry to put it on even a parlay. And Mora missed weight by 3.5 pounds. So credit to Ruiz for taking the fight, because Ishmael Bonfim, let me confirm that that's correct. Let me not be that guy. So yeah, Ishmael Bonfim missed weight and got his fight against Vince Pichel taken off the card because Pichel didn't want to fight him with the weight disadvantage. And honestly, I think what that comes down to is, if you miss by 1 pound, pound and a half, maybe even 2, your opponent gets the feeling that you tried to make it, that you were sucking yourself dry, weight-wise, water-wise, and you just couldn't make it. But you're drained, you're depleted, you're fully depleted. You've taken everything out that your body wants to get rid of, that it will allow you to get rid of. So they'll still take the fight. Now, 3.5 pounds sounds like you didn't want to go through the hard part. So you just said, I'll lose 30% of my purse. And I'll take my chances on winning and getting 100% of my win bonus and only giving up 30% of my show bonus. Not 30% of the total. So it's almost incentivized that if you're going to have to struggle and die to make the weight outside of a title fight, once or twice in your career, could get away with blowing it. Especially if they're far apart. Can't have them back to back. Now, that being said, I don't think it matters. And that's where I'm just shocked by this is Mora was just, ragdolling Montserrat as she wanted to. She was landing bombs on her. Ground and pound was phenomenal, fantastic, superb, whatever great superlative you want to give it, or adjective. Now, the other thing about Mora, good head movement, good footwork, good takedowns, and actually midway through the second, started to pour it on and realizing, showed a killer instinct, is I guess what I'm belaboring there. Got in the 3/4 mount, started teeing off on Canelo Ruiz. Now, do I love her missing weight? No. Do I love her performance in the octagon, getting the finish like that, and 3/4 mount, teeing off on someone after already dominating them for 8 minutes? Yeah, love that. Super high on this girl. But at strawweight, 115, Let me make sure that's the correct weight here. I don't want to be that guy. Yeah, 115. I mean, two judges gave the first round a 10-8. If that doesn't already tell you. Let me see what I scored it here for the people at home. A clear 10-8. Clear 10-8. Now, one judge gave it 10-9. That's pretty, I don't like that. I don't like that. Anyway, point being, at 115, apologize. At 115 pounds, with the 1 pound allowance, so 116, but to fight for a belt, you're going to make 115, or else you don't get to fight for that belt. Missing by 3.5 is really 4.5 to the truth of your weight, the division that you fight in, that is. That being said, 4.5 pounds out of 115 as a percentage, it's just under 4%, maybe just over. So when I think about it like that, yeah, just under 4%, just under. Did that in my head, everyone. You're welcome. Now, that's a large portion of body weight to miss by. You know, if a heavyweight misses by 3.5, you're talking about like a 1.6% of the weight class miss. So it's almost like if there was a 1% allowance, you know, the straw weights would have to make closer, the 1 pound, and the heavyweights would get a 3 pound. Because when the weight's that big, the disparity starts changing. That's why the divisions are 205 to 265. So why wouldn't the heavyweights get more than one extra pound? I understand that they're already at 265. But hey, why is there a weight cap? You know, bothered me for a while. Now, she ends up calling out Diana Belbita. Seems to be a good call out. I believe Belbita has a ranking, but I will check on that. It looks like she actually does not. So, interesting to have a performance that good and not call for a ranked opponent. Now, that being said, I think that this girl on my rankings is going to slide up, I mean, tremendously. Is probably going to maybe be near 15. I mean, I do love Michelle Waterson-Gomez. I do love Lupi Godinez. I do love Angela Hill, who did fight on this card. And I do love Karolina Kowalkiewicz. But I think all those girls are going to be in for a dogfight with Mora. So, that being said, we'll actually keep it pushing to Denise Gomes and Angela Hill. Angela Hill, number 12 at strawweight. Great little push forward here. Denise Gomes, the minus 140 favorite. Angela Hill plus 120, number 12, like I said. The value on Hill here was good too. If you take the plus 120 and you take the minus 200 from JK, you already have two legs on this parlay. Now, here's where I continued to struggle. Was, you know, I could get two legs off, but there was just no one else that I loved that had a good enough number for me to feel good about taking it. I mean, you know, the main event, Almeida's minus 485, and he's probably the guy that I just feel like stylistically couldn't lose the fight. So, that being said, we'll get into this fight. This fight, I thought, could have been fight of the night. Didn't get fight of the night. Probably should have been fight of the night. You know, and I ended up scoring the fight 29-28. Two of the judges do as well. One judge has a 30-27, which I'm very surprised about that. I thought all these rounds were close. I thought all these rounds were very fun to watch. I thought both women did a great job of battling in different positions, fighting to positions they wanted to be in, and then getting out of the positions their opponent was obviously putting them in. So both fighting to their advantages there. And all the rounds seemingly were close to the last, you know, minute, 30 seconds. Some girl would win out the pace, the volume, the damage in that last segment of the round, and would end up winning the round most of the times. And most of the times, that was Angela Hill. Now, that being said, the first round of the fight, very, very close with 90 seconds to go. I scored it to Gomes. Now, I think if you scored it to Hill, I don't really have a problem with that. So I suppose the 30-27 is on the table there. And that is the round that everyone gave to Gomes. So, you know what? I don't have as much of a problem with it now looking back at it, but still thought the fight felt more like a 29-28 than a 30-27. Now, that being said, Angela Hill defends her ranking, fights off Denise Gomes. I mean, if you want to, Eduardo Mora takes on Angela Hill, Denise Gomes. I mean, granted, Eduardo Mora could fight a lot sooner, so maybe there's a better opponent. And she did specifically call for a girl, so I mean, why not? You know, tell Belbita that we got this newcomer. She's calling for your name. What do you think about it? So we'll keep it pushing. There's another great fight coming down the pipe here. Actually, our first bonus of the night looks like we're getting to. It's going to be the light heavyweight division. We have Vitor Petrino, minus 250, taking on Modestas Bukauskas. If you remember, Bukauskas had fought Khalil Roundtree and got his knee kicked backwards and blew out his ACL and MCL. It was terrible. It was awful to watch. Very hard to watch. One of the worst injuries I've seen. One of the most freakish ones, too. Guys get kicked in the front of their leg or top of their knee, quad area all the time. It just, I guess his foot was planted wrong or he stepped on it at the right time. Wrong time, that being. All that being said, he's back. Looks well rehabbed. The legs look strong. And Bukauskas was doing a good job of landing leg kicks himself, staying out of range of Petrino's huge power bombs. Petrino's known for having insane power, maybe not the most speed, and maybe not the best volume, and maybe not the best accuracy, but a lot of power and a lot of viciousness. So he'll go in to get it. Now, that being said, Bukauskas is moving well, getting off the leg kicks, frustrating him. So Petrino just decided he was going to rush in, almost take a bad shot, but muscle his way up to the fence. And mind you, this is 205. Picked up Bukauskas with a body lock, got right under the waist with it, picked him up, and slammed him. 205. Not a small guy. That being said, ends the round on top, did some okay ground and pound past that point. Really didn't seem too busy with it. 10-9 Petrino in the first. I would imagine every judge had that. I can't imagine how you could have anything else. And of course, they did. I'm glad to see that. Now, Petrino only needed, man, I didn't realize it was that fast. 1 minute and 3 seconds of the second round. If you bet the under 1.5, that definitely cashed here. But see, once again, just the odds there weren't great. And I thought Petrino, there were paths for Bukauskas to win this fight. Granted, after having watched it, I don't necessarily think that still. But Petrino could have been put on that parlay. So I think there was a path here to a 3 to 4 legger. But just didn't feel like it was the most solid parlay. No, maybe those are the ones to go for. Because Petrino lands a massive left hook. And that was it. I mean, we didn't need the ground and pound. It was a one-punch KO. Bukauskas just flattened all the way back and then had a very dazed reaction. Goddard stepped in, saw his head snap back whenever he hit the ground, which is typically a sign of still being out, midair. It's not a flash KO. You're actually knocked out. So, good call by the ref. You love to see when the ref actually saves a guy because I like to watch him fight. So let's not end their career short. So yeah, Petrino gets the extra 50 grand. Good for him. Light heavyweight needs the young lions, and this guy is one of those. Let's see what his age here is. Age is here. 26 years old. My God, he's born 4 years and 6 days after me. Yeah, Virgo. Probably not going to do great. Nah, I'm just kidding. But born in 1997, 10-0 record, 1 sub, 7 KOs, well, 7 KO TKOs. Has a unanimous decision over Turkali, which that's not aging well. You know, I mean, he got the KO on the Contender Series, subbed Praknio, albeit very late in the fight, and now got the KO Bukauskas. I mean, yeah, Petrino's left hand, man. This is his second knockout with it in Endeavor Promotions. So DWCS being the first time that left hand got the KO for him. But the guy's talented. The guy's powerful. Good wrestling, which is going to be a huge key for him to be able to effectively use that power. But yeah, I like Petrino moving forward. I need to remind myself of that and maybe start looking for him to go for unders on or go for prop finishes. Seems like he might actually be stepping into his own. He's had enough fights now where I'm sure he's starting to feel comfortable in the UFC. And I would also imagine at this point they've already offered him an extension, or, you know, I mean, worst case, he's going to have one more fight left on a 4-fight deal that he signed from Dana White. Or after the first 2 fights, they might have already re-signed him to a 6th fight. And it doesn't matter. But anyway, he's looking good. Let's keep it pushing to the main event of the prelims. The featured prelim. That is the name for it. Featured prelim. We have Beefy Boy favorite, and I mean absolute favorite. Dominic may be higher on him than I am, but I mean that's not to say that he's not in my top 12 or 11 welterweights. So, I mean, while he might be 9 or 8 on Dominic's list, you know what I mean. Very highly thought of. That would be Renat Fakhretdinov. Ranked 15 currently. We both think he's going to ascend higher. He's minus 340. He's taking on Eliseu Zaleski dos Santos. I am playing the Alphabet Wars today and winning. At plus 270. This was one where I loved Fakhretdinov to win the fight, but minus 340 didn't feel necessarily safe. Or safe for me as a better, meaning that minus 250 would have felt a lot better, because I think that's the realistic odds of this fight. And I think that Zaleski dos Santos is a lot better than he's being given credit for. I mean, look at the guy's record. He got the win over Saint Denis. He has a win over Abubakar Nurmagomedov. He has a split decision loss to Salikov, which, I mean, either way, that's great to go that far with him. Lost to the Leech, KO with 9 seconds to go in the fight. So, and I mean, that's back in 2019. But has wins over Luigi Vendramini. He has a win over Sean Strickland in 2018. This guy has a win over Omari Akhmedov. He has a loss to Dalby, which is aging great. He has a win over Max Griffin. He has a win over Curtis Millender. Lyman good, a split decision. I mean, yeah, if you look at Zaleski dos Santos' record, granted, the win over Saint Denis was up a weight class, first fight in the UFC, and that was brutal. The dude is way more dangerous than he's ever given credit for. Super live dog. But once again, I thought he was so overmatched that it didn't make sense, because, you know, at a point being a live dog is more of a, do you have a puncher's chance or a submission chance if you're so far overmatched, which I thought he was. So, that being said, let's get to the breakdown, because total strikes landed end up being only 6 apart. Total strikes thrown ended up being only 5 apart. These guys essentially went to war and both tried to fight their fight. Fakhretdinov ends up being 1 of 9 on his takedown attempts. Zaleski dos Santos is the only guy to actually get a submission attempt off. And Fakhretdinov's the only guy to get a knockdown. And the knockdown happens in the first 15 seconds of the fight. I mean, it looked like Fakhretdinov was about to walk through Zaleski dos Santos. Looked like he was about to make easy work of him, no questions asked. And then, somehow, Zaleski dos Santos managed to recover, gain his consciousness back, perhaps? I mean, he looked like he was rocked at the start. Defended well, fought back up to his feet with defense, got up, circled out, fought a pretty good rest of the round. I mean, I I scored it 10-9. I thought it was honestly close to being a 10-8. And I could have potentially seen the 10-8 just for the knockdown. And, I mean, he wasn't really able to do much. I mean, I think he was able to do enough damage to secure the 10-9 here. Let's see what the judges had to say about it. So every judge does give that a 10-9, and I think that's probably about right. Oh, wow. That is not what I thought I was going to see. So, in round 2, granted, I just said I thought Fakardinov got close to a 10-8 there. No one gave it. Fakardinov round 2. Nice takedown once again. I mean, Zaleski dos Santos uses the cage, works his way up, escapes at the end of the round from essentially in a grappling battle the whole round. Not much damage from either guy. So for me, the control in the round, it's the only time Fakardinov actually gets the takedown. I scored it 10-9 Fakardinov. 2 other judges did as well. One judge scored it for Zaleski dos Santos, which is rather shocking. So one judge has it 19-19. 2 of us, or 2 of the judges and myself, have it 20-18. So essentially for Dos Santos, and his corner was telling him this too, hey, we got to go for a finish here. We're down 2 rounds. I don't know how he has the second round scored for him. That is beyond me shocking. That being said, Dos Santos came out in the third and looked very sharp. He started avoiding a lot of the crazy wild shots Fakardinov was throwing. Fakardinov, the whole fight, it's problematic for me when guys try to do the Sean Strickland thing where they talk shit in a fight or want to do little physical emulations or quips or whatever the hell you want to call it. But it's tough whenever you're doing that and then not finding success, or it's looking like it's a little fun game to you. Like, I understand that it is a sport, but it is also a fight. So, the intensity kind of has to match that for it to feel like it's really real, which I think for as fans, that's what we want to see. Is as close to a real fight with legitimate rules that protect the safety of people. So we're trying to see. We're trying to see the fight, but as a sport where it can be scored, but more so is, the one rules, of course, are different scoring, but probably the way that Dominic and I view fights more so. That being said, Dos Santos, like I said, avoided all that crazy stuff and weaved in a big liver kick that actually dropped Fakardinov, allowed Dos Santos to get on top. I thought he might get the finish on Fakardinov. He had him hurt, was running down a ton of damage on him. Couldn't get him out of there, but did so much damage to him and had him beat up by the end of the third. I had it 10-8 for Zaleski dos Santos, meaning I scored it 28-28, which is pretty wild. If I gave the 10-7 to Fakardinov at the start, we're talking, or the 10-8 at the start, we're talking about a 28-27 fight where I have him winning, and that's a crazy scorecard I don't think I've ever had. And then I also said someone could have a 29-28 if you didn't like Dos Santos, thinking that there was no shot. You could have scored rounds 1 or 2 for Dos Santos. That being said, the judges' scorecards come out. 2 28-28s. That sounds odd. 1 29-28. And the 29-28 ended up being for Zaleski dos Santos. You can probably hear me changing my notes here because I'm just in shock. And I guess moving forward, that's a fight I would like to see again, especially considering both guys almost finished each other. And Zaleski dos Santos was offering submission attempts at the end of the fight once he had him rocked. So both guys got close. I guess, yeah, we have to run it back. I mean, that is the back end of welterweight, so it's not going to hold anything up as far as the UFC is concerned. As far as Dominic and I are concerned, that really sucks for as far as what we would have liked to have seen based on the welterweight division, where it currently stands and who's at the back of it. Um, and it looks like Hamzat finally got moved out of the welterweight rankings. This is big news because now he got put into the middleweight rankings and they put him at 9. I mean, I suppose you beat a high-ranked welterweight at middleweight, but you didn't beat a welterweight. So now Dolidze's on the table for him. Hermansson's on the table for him. Costa, that's still what needs to happen, honestly. Vettori Hamzat would be pretty good. Whitaker would actually give Hamzat a lot of trouble, I think. And Duplessis just got booked to fight Sean Strickland. So that'll be great. But what this also means is that Covington actually got moved down a spot to 3 behind Bilal Muhammad. Interesting. But what that does mean is that Covington Edwards will happen. Usman's still sitting there at 1, but obviously just had that fight, so made a lot of money. Doesn't have to fight for a minute. Can just take some time to rest up. He probably only has 1 or 2 more left in him. Gilbert Burns also getting old. Bilal Muhammad's sitting there. Shavkat's sitting there. I mean, welterweight needed Fakhretdinov to win here because you have Gary and Madalena and Sean Brady. It would be so great to get this extra guy in there to push this whole brand new wave through. I mean, we saw it with lightweight with the Vazeev, Sarukian, Gamrot, Islam. I mean, that might Patty, I guess, could be thrown on that, even though he's not in the rankings, but just the wave of new lightweights all together shaking up the division at once. I think you could even put is Benoit Saint Denis not ranked? That is quite surprising to me. I very much thought he would be. But we'll keep it pushing. We will trudge on to the main card. And like I said, for anyone that didn't catch it at the start or hasn't checked the description, Dominic had a little medical emergency. Nothing, too alarming or dangerous, but just has to get that addressed before he can be on the show, or at least effectively. Anyway, we'll kick off the main card with a catchweight bout at 165, which a lot of fighters think should be the weight class, which I think is an interesting conversation to be had if you just had 125, 35, 45, and so on, all the way up to the 185 division, then skip the 195 and go to 205, because we do see a lot of 185ers and 205ers be able to go back and forth. Guys that, might be able to really squeeze down to 185 or just be able to bulk up and make 205 without much problem. And then you see guys like Izzy that don't necessarily struggle to make 85, but can still make the 205. So, seemingly that 20-pound gap is okay. Then you might like to think that there would be a division like a cruiser that was 230, and then you could raise the heavyweight limit to 300 and do anyone from 230 to 300. Because, honestly, if you're 245, 250 pounds, you look at John Jones, Cyril Gahn, it's not going to make too much difference. And at that point, a lot of those guys would just be getting fat to be bigger than that. So, maybe these guys that are 6'8" gargantuans that are a solidified 6'8" could then be fighters without having to try to make 265. Who knows? But this is 165. So, we have Elvis Brenner, who stormed onto the scene recently as a shoot-to-box training partner of Charles Oliveira. Record 15-3 coming into this fight. Got the KO win over Kudus-Taladze and also got the split decision over Tukagov. Whenever he got the win over Kudus-Taladze, the fight was an absolute war. Kudus-Taladze, super underrated. And honestly, had I known more about his opponent, Kanan Khrushchevsky, I mean, he's making his debut. He is the taller fighter. He is, however, the older fighter. It also doesn't look as in good of a shape. This is the only Brazil and Brazil matchups. There's no home advantage for either guy. And when I think about Brenner, the Brazilians always cut a lot of weight. So fighting at 165, I'm sure he wasn't mad at. And when you look at the way Krzyzewski's built, he definitely wasn't mad at it. So this is one where I think Brenner would have been a very smart bet. Had I just remembered Brenner's performance against Kudus-Ladze, I might have thought about it a bit more. Now that being said, both guys were throwing huge shots at the start that were barely missing. Now that being said, every time Brenner, and I noticed this is the start, it's in my notes for anyone that's wondering, would do a great job of throwing almost like a 1-2-3 with it being like left jab, right cross, and then either like a left hook or overhand left, some big power back end shot from the left hand. That being said, the first left was always just a range finder, just kind of a touch. Most of the times, that shot would either land or glance or kind of establish the range. The second punch, the right, Krzyzewski did a fantastic job of sliding off the right every time. But he never slid off the third shot, which made no sense. You're dodging the cross, yes, which will hurt you, but that third shot's the big power one, the one where everything's coming behind it after this full footwork has set up this whole combination. And so, I mean, he landed that left maybe 2 or 3 times, and Krzyzewski ate it, and it was very impressive for him to eat that. But by the 4-minute mark of the first round, he ate the last one he was able to take. I mean, it hit him on his actual ear. I haven't seen a punch land so clean on someone's ear, maybe ever. And it was so fast, and whenever, if you hit a guy right on the ear and he's already trying to slide it, he just kind of flops. And I mean, this guy face down was done for. Absolute fantastic KO. Ends up getting him a bonus 50 grand. The Brazilians love to get the bonuses out of shoot to box. That gym has to be, I mean, it has to be like a cultural thing there where they tell them, just go for it. Just trust yourself and go for it. And somehow they get those guys to believe in themselves to the level where they will just do that. Very impressive. A different mindset, a different skill set altogether too. And no one fights like the shoot to box fighters except for the guys from shoot to box. So makes me interested for Charles Oliveira moving forward. I mean, obviously, if his training partner's looking this good, only makes me think that Charles is the one, obviously, getting that growth out of Brenner by growing himself, by challenging himself, by putting on good performances in the gym. So I like Brenner moving forward. He's got to go back to 165. That being said, the winner of the St. Denis and Jared Gordon fight would be a great matchup for Brenner. I like that moving forward. I don't even think I need to look through my rankings at this point. I like that one. So we'll keep it moving. This fight definitely should have been above Jailton Almeida and Rodrigo Nascimento. Nah, we'll go in order. I've gone chronologically this far at this point. Why would I not? Why would I stop? We have Abus Magomedov, plus 225, former PFL fighter, highly respected, he's from Germany, highly respected German fighter that had high expectations along with that respect whenever he came to the UFC. Now, fighting Sean Strickland, that's really tough, especially whenever his win was over Dustin Stoltzfus, who, got cut after that fight, and Dominic and I both discussed Stoltzfus not being UFC quality, so wasn't the best win. And then Strickland dismantled this guy. Melted him in 8 minutes time. And then Magomedov lost his last time out as well. So, plus 225 underdog to Caio Borralho minus 280 favorite, fighting at home. Love Baralho. Super fun, young, talented guy from Brazil. Not a whole lot to go on here round by round. I mean, I scored every round for Baralho. He dropped him in the final round. Big knee. It seemed like he was going to get the finish and then might have started to run out of gas, maybe 90 seconds or so to go. So decided to just stay on top, stay in winning fashion, and not risk it. Now, two judges did give Abus the first round. And you know, I thought Baralho was ahead with 23 seconds to go when he got eye poked. Abus landed maybe one or two good shots after the eye poke, and they were directly after, and then Baralho was able to slide out of the way and end the round. It was almost like I wasn't going to reward the strike immediately following an eye poke as a way to steal a round out from under in a round that was a clear coin flip in my book. So I had a 30-27 Baralho, two judges 29-28 for him. One judge agrees with me, 30-27. So, love Kyle Baralho moving forward. Magomedov, it's tough, man. I mean, that guy is a top 30 middleweight, which we need those. There's a place for him on the roster. But he's not top 15. He's not top 20. 25. Top 25 is a... Now we're talking. Top 30 is about right. So, I don't want to spend too much time on it. We obviously only have the 3 fights left. Now, this is the fight that I was discussing previously that I just thought there's just no way this fight should be the third to last fight on the card. And that's heavyweights. Jailton Almeida, plus 165, taking on Rodrigo Nascimento. Now, these guys have already fought in 2020 during COVID. And I believe Nascimento won, and I believe he stopped him. If I'm not mistaken, let me look that up and make sure. Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. Subbed Jailton Almeida in the second round, 2 minutes into the second round, May of 2020, so deep COVID times. And that was Maze's, or, well, that was Nascimento's first fight during COVID, so, yeah, I just, this fight overall, I mean, I just couldn't understand how it could be the featured bout, for lack of a better term. I mean, that was what it was. So, neither guy were able to get any takedowns. Really, neither guy got much control, if any. It mostly came down to Nascimento just landing the bigger, heavier shots consistently throughout the fight. I thought Mays fought his best round in the third round. I thought he won the third round. No, Jailton Almeida's 10-6 is a salty record, my guy. Like, I don't think that's going to look good moving forward, or how much longer they're going to keep that, because that is a hard sell for fans, especially at heavyweight, where we would like to see young guys get those opportunities. And Mo Green got cut, and like, that guy's Jailton Almeida's level. I think they fought, and I think he beat Mo Green, but it's the same level of guy. So two judges do end up giving Jailton Almeida that third round. Makes me feel better about the way I was seeing the fight. Don't have a problem with 30-27, but we can keep it pushing because, like I said, that fight does not deserve that much recognition. Now, a fight that does deserve recognition. Welterweight again, Gabriel Bonfim, Nicolas Dalby. Now, if I take a moment and I pull up my rankings just so I can describe to you how far apart. Oh, there you go. Hey, there you go, everyone. Now, if we talk about rankings here and where I personally would have these guys, I think they're a little further apart than the odds would than the matchup would suggest. As far as why would the matchup makers make this fight is, I guess, what I'm trying to get at here. So I have Gabriel Bonfim as my 14th best welterweight, whereas I have Nicolas Dalby as my 25th best welterweight. So, by my personal rankings, plus 425, very disrespectful. The straight here is actually a bet in hindsight that the Billy Walters books would have said. You know, you think about skill gaps, obviously, in fighting aren't the same as NCAA football. There's not 115 teams, and there's not 4 that are playoff quality or 12 or whatever you want to say. But think about 14, you think about 25, and a guy that's been having a resurgence in his career, Nicolas Dalby. At plus 425, 25 taking on, I mean, that's like number 14 playing number 25, and so roughly the same. I mean, when OU played OSU recently in football, for football fans, Oklahoma State. OU, Oklahoma was a 5-point favorite, and they were ranked 9, and Oklahoma State was ranked 22, and it's 5 points. So, you know, in terms of points, that's probably like a 25-point game if we're talking about plus 425. I mean, they're saying Dalby has no chance, and Bonfim is minus 575. Now, that being said, Bonfim, clearly the faster guy, clearly was trying to land more devastating shots at the start of the fight. But that's exactly what Dalby wants, in my opinion, here, because Dalby is the locomotive. I mean, I think that actually is his nickname, but his whole point and the whole thing he's been building his career on since that new breathing technique practice, training, in-fight thing he does now, he's just been an unstoppable cardio machine that has also developed a really good defensive set of foot skills and footwork. So you put those two things together, he can go 15 minutes and turn it up late on you, and he also is going to evade a lot of the damage you're going to throw his way. I thought Dalby did a good job, honestly, of keeping the first round close, even though he found himself in a full mount with about a minute to go in the round. And as much as Bonfim had the technical advantages and had the physical advantages, he didn't seem to have the fight IQ advantage in this sense. Dalby was able to make the fight ugly. Bonfim needed to fight a pretty distance control fight, baiting Dalby in, but sliding off the corners, not getting on the cage, not getting in a dirty war with him, not gassing himself out trying to get some wild highlight finish, and then being pressed to the fence, and then getting sucked dry of energy trying to get out of this grappling affair. But that's exactly what Dalby was pressing for the whole time. So you could tell it was a game plan. Now, did I score 10-9 to Bonfim? I sure did. And did Bonfim get a takedown 20 seconds into the second round? Yeah. And did Dalby keep grinding and get back up? Yeah. And by the time he got back up, 3 minutes to go in the second round, you can almost see Bonfim starting to throw shots that he's starting to either be off slightly because the timing is off, because he can't throw as fast as he thinks he can throw, so Dalby is aware of them and can move out of the way. And you also see Bonfim starting to drop his hands. Now, with about 2 minutes to go in the round, everything changes, and Dalby starts landing these big elbows off the clinch, you know, like I said, making the fight dirty. Is landing these big elbows off the clinch. And Bonfim, to his credit, was eating them well. Oh, wow, 100 to the first round at 10-8 for Bonfim. That is absurd. It definitely was not at 10-8. But that being said, you know, for about almost a minute on the fence, Bonfim was just getting pummeled by combos and big elbows to the point where he started to crumble. And then, I mean, Dalby hit a knee that just sat Bonfim down. And it was one of those knees that, yeah, it connected hard and it definitely hurt. But it was more of he was just exhausted, and that was a shot where just you're not going to continue after a shot that hard when you're just gassed to the fullest. So, credit to Dalby. These guys get fight of the night. They both get 50 grand. Like I said earlier, this should have been 50 grand for Dalby. They should have given Petrino's 50. And they should have given Brenner's 50. And then they should have given another 50 grands for fight of the night to Angela Hill and Denise Gomez. But not Dana White. Hopefully he made it right behind the closed doors. Now, what this is going to do for the Bonfims, one missing weight. Gabriel, I think, having 2 losses in a row now. Or 2 out of the last 3. And losing to a guy 11 spots behind him. I'm not rushing for Dalby to be a top 15 guy, but I am rushing to slam the brakes on the Bonfim bros. I think the UFC has done a great job recently of bringing guys that have electrically fun skill sets to watch, but I don't know that they're the quality and caliber of a UFC fighter 15 minutes through 10 fights of a career in the UFC, if that makes any sense the way I said that. So seeing them go the full 15 and being the same fighter for 15 minutes, that's important in the UFC. You have to be able to do that. And then if you're going to stay in the UFC, can you do that every fight for 10 fights? And can you win at least 6 of those 10? Because if you can't, you won't be there after. So that's also the co-main event here, which is surprising. The other Bonfim bro missing weight, not being able to fight Vince Pichel is the reason for that. That is unfortunate. So if these guys have weight problems and they have cardio problems, I got to fully slam the brakes on that. Now, the locomotive Thomas Dalby might have to put more coal into his train. Do I think he's top 15? No. Do I think he beats Eliseu Zaleski dos Santos? No, but that's a great fight, and that's the fight I'm pushing for next for him. I love that fight. I think it would be a great fight. Now, do I think Fakardinov and him need to run it back? Sure. But I also think you could save it. As fun of a fight as it was, let Fakardinov get a shot to fight up, and then let Zaleski dos Santos get a win over Dalby, push himself up into the top 15, and you can get your cake and eat it too, because you can kill off some of these old welterweights that you know are going to have to get out of here soon. All that being said, we'll keep it pushing in the main event. Jailton Almeida, like I touched on at the start of the fight, or started the podcast here, number 9, Derrick Lewis, number 10. Derrick Lewis has a 29, 30-pound weight advantage here, which is what I was alluding to in the start, that Almeida's frame is big, and he is a big guy, but he is that tweener that it's a struggle to make 205, and it drains him, and it kills who he can be and who he wants to be in the octagon, cardio-wise, all of that. And even still, this fight goes all 5 rounds, and I'm not going to go round by round. There's absolutely 0 point. Every single round is the exact same. There's 21 minutes of control time, or ground control, over 20 minutes of ground control for Almeida. But what does that tell you? I mean, you have Derrick Lewis on the ground for 20 minutes out of a 25-minute fight, and you can't finish him. And you only get one 10-8. And they gave the 10-8 in round 2. I gave all 10 9s. I had it 50-45. Derrick Lewis had no chance in winning at any point in the fight. But he also didn't look at any point in the fight like he was ever close to being finished. There was never a submission attempt that looked dangerous. There was never enough ground and pounder damage. I mean, Derrick Lewis might have had a busted lip at the end of the fight, and I think that was it. I mean, to fight 25 minutes with a guy heavyweight and have a busted lip, just a bad fight. And the real problem here, the real rant, I guess, to end the episode on, is that, you know, Derrick Lewis just re-signed that 6-fight deal like I had talked about after the DeLima thing, and he's paid. I mean, the guy has how many UFC fights? Because there is a number where they start guaranteeing veteran minimums, and number of fights in the UFC equals a certain base pay and sponsorship base pay, no matter who you fight, every time you step in the octagon. God, this guy's career is littered. He's been fighting in the UFC, since 2014. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. This guy has 28 UFC fights? Is that right? He's 27 and 12 and he has 28 UFC fights. Wow. And he had fights against Jared Rosholt, who Rosholt was in the UFC for some time. I don't know why he fought Raheem Cleveland twice. That seems rude to Raheem Cleveland. And he has two wins. Oh, he has a win over Sean Jordan and he has 2 losses to Sean Jordan. Wow. Wow, that's the one guy he could never get past really in his career. But yeah, so Derrick Lewis, 28 UFC fights. That's absurd. I did not realize that. Striker and brawler is his fight style. Jailton Almeida listed as a boxer? No, he's not. No, he's not. His hands are okay. His grappling is pretty good, pretty technical, especially on the ground. But those takedowns are not going to work on anyone past Derrick Lewis. I mean, if you want to look at the rankings here, I mean, you have, I suppose, Tai Tuivasa they would work on. I might have misspoken, but that's, one up from Lewis. They're not going to give him that back-to-back. They would just be cupcake walking Almeida, which would make no sense. You have Spivak at 7. That's a very fun fight. It's a very interesting fight, especially since Spivak weighs maybe only 10 or 12 pounds more than Almeida, so almost a weight advantage, negligible there in that fight. And then the top end is pretty much everyone past that besides Volkov, so Volkov could be fun too. Curtis Blaydes is the original matchup for Jailton Almeida. I still support that being remade, because then we actually have to see Jailton Almeida and who he is. And that's the major story here, is that this fight didn't show us anything about Jailton Almeida, except for he doesn't have that killer finishing instinct against guys that are potentially just physically going to have a bigger presence than him and be stronger and bigger and not physically manipulatable, like at 205 or like with some of these other matchups he's been fed. And I think Jailton fumbled it by not just going for it. I think he could have gotten Derrick Lewis out of there. Derrick Lewis is a guy where if you put it on him enough, he'll just decide he doesn't want to be there. Typically. So I think Jailton Almeida now, I mean, he fought back, so it was a coy way for the UFC to let him fight forward without having to fight back again, because he beat Rosenstruik, hopped Lewis, and then fought Lewis, but Lewis being one back, and also just a strategic wonderland for him. I mean, you'd think that's a fight that suits Almeida every single day of the week, and Derrick Lewis is just, man, you got me on a 6-fight deal. All right, I'm going to get this cash, whatever. And so for Almeida, you look at who's next. It has to be Curtis Blaydes. But if I'm Curtis Blaydes, I'm not afraid of Almeida. And I don't even know if I want to waste my time on it, because it's not an entertaining fight. There's no entertainment value in that. It's being shown that Almeida is not quite the same buzzsaw we thought at heavyweight with these more top-end, top-echelon guys. And at 205, he certainly could be. He certainly would be. But that cut is probably just detrimental for him, and I don't know that he could continue to make it. And he is 20-2, so already a little longer in the tooth, and a lot of muscle weight that he's probably put on to stay at heavyweight. I don't think he can get back to 205, at least in a short time even. So, all things considered, he's kind of made his bed, and now he's stuck in it, where Aspinall and Pavlovich will fight for the interim belt. He called for Cyril Gane after, but you're not going to get another striker that isn't a good grappler. The UFC at this point is going to slam the brakes on the train. You're going to get thrust to the front. They're going to say, all right, Now you just got to beat someone skill for skill. Now you just got to be better than a guy that's good at what you're good at. Now you have to be better in other arenas that are not your number one facet, which for him is submission grappling. It's not necessarily wrestling. But at the same time, Curtis Blades, Derrick Blades, Curtis Lewis, that's hilarious. Curtis Blades is not going to let you take him down like that. He's the best wrestler in the heavyweight division, currently fighting. He will get the takedowns on Almeida, and can Almeida fight off his back? From what I saw, there's no chance. And from the boxing I saw on the feet, I don't think he holds a supreme advantage over Blades in any sort of way. So, looking forward for Almeida, it was almost like he fumbled the bag here. I mean, he had all of this hype. It was a wave that I mean, Dominic and I were riding, UFC fans were riding, I know a bunch of MMA pundits were riding. And as dominant as his performance was, it lacked the finishing touch. It's almost like a guy that puts up a great season but doesn't have the signature moment and doesn't win the Heisman because he didn't have the signature moments, the big moments. He didn't come up big in the biggest times. He just kind of got through them. Now, there's something to be said about that, and I think that goes a long way, especially in fighting, if you can just dog your way through it and continue working and make chicken salad out of chicken shit, as Dominic would always say. But I think at a point, these guys like Stipe, Curtis Blades, John Jones, I mean, hell, you can even argue Aspinall, are not going to let you grapple effectively against them and win. So, moving forward for Almeida, I'm very intrigued to see the Curtis Blades matchup, but not from a pay-per-view fireworks perspective, more of a MMA hardcore. I want to see if the puzzles can be solved there by Almeida and see if he can continue his run, especially being a lighter end heavyweight, 236, 235. That is a lighter weight guy. But yeah, I mean, a fun card overall. Like I said, disagree with the fight of the night bonus, but it is what it is. The parlays were a little hard to find and hit. In retrospect, I saw definitely some bets I should have probably pulled the trigger on and or thought about more. But all things considered, pretty fun weekend of fights. Now, next weekend, UFC 295 should have been Miocic Jones, but as we all know, John Jones completely tore his pectoral tendon off the bone from his shoulder. Who knows if he'll ever even fight again? I would assume not, and why should he? He's the greatest of all time. He doesn't have to do anything more to prove that. But what we do have in the co-main is Sergey Pavlovich taking on Tom Aspinall for the interim heavyweight title, number 2 versus number 4. Give me Aspinall here. I believe Aspinall is minus 115, and Pavlovich is minus 105, so damn near a pick'em. I mean, it's close to a pick'em as you can get without it being a pick'em. And then in the main event, we already all know who I'm riding with. You have Yuri Prochazka taking on Alex Pereira. I've seen Pereira at minus 125 and Yuri at plus 105. Give me Yuri all day. I mean, give me this guy right here all day. Now, am I being a stan and just riding? Yeah, for sure I am. But also, that fight's going to be pure fireworks. I know that Yuri is a much better grappler than Poatan. And I know Dominic's going to ride with Poatan, so maybe we put a personal wager, a beefy wager, or some sort of embarrassing thing we have to do on the show on the fight. But it is the pay-per-view this weekend. That is the main event. I mean, it's worth buying. I'll just tell you outright. Stream it, don't stream it, do whatever you want. But if you want to buy the fights that you know are going to be good and not risk getting a bad stream or losing the fight at the main event because it's a fight you just know you can't miss, the co-main event and main event of this pay-per-view are those two fights. They're going to end in finishes. And if somehow they don't, there'll be absolute wars for 25 minutes. So you're going to get your money's worth either way. Dominic and I, we'll get it as we always do. But, yeah, I would actually encourage people to buy this one. This one's going to be worth watching. Don't want to miss a second. I'm riding with Yuri. I am positive Dominic will ride with Alex Pereira. Maybe we'll get some Pavlovich Aspinall splits. If he's going Pavlovich, I'm going Aspinall. Get a little parlay double wager. We'll see. But that's gonna wrap it up for this week. This was UFC Fight Night Sao Paulo, episode 152 for us. I think that's all that's important, right? But yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, give us a follow on X, formerly known as Twitter. We're posting and reposting all the time on there. Very interactive. And yeah, we're trying to get to 200 YouTube subscribers. Not a big ask. There's maybe 160, 165 of y'all right now. We appreciate and love every single one of you. Thank you so much. But we got to keep pumping these numbers up. We got to get 185, 200, 600 hood rats. Subscribers, I mean. And that's, shout out 4-year-old virgin, if you know the reference. And that's what we're shooting for, guys. So don't forget to like, subscribe, share, if you want, or comment. DM us. We don't bite. We'll see you next week, guys. Thanks for watching.